Impact of Influence, the Murdaugh family murders. This is the unfolding story of a powerful South Carolina family, the mysterious deaths they are linked to, and our quest to bring you the truth. Hello, friend, and hello, Seton Tucker. Hello, producer Dwayne. I'm Matt Harris, and this is going to be a rip-roaring episode for sure, because she is very willing to share her opinion, and we love her for it.
And you have been on Court TV with Vinnie Politan multiple times. I've watched it, and she's not scared to speak her mind.
That's right. So let's get right to it. First of all, Impact of Influence on Facebook. There you go. Now, on to our guest. She's big on this, the Alec Murdaugh stuff. She's big on TikTok. Lawyer Lori on TikTok, but Lori Murray is her name. She is been on Court TV a ton of times. I'm sure you've seen her there. She's been on with me at times as well. I'm sure not the highlight of her career, having me in one of the blocks or one of the squares. She's actually a real attorney and knows what's going on. Seton, you just had a good first question.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you became interested in the whole Murdaugh thing and doing these TikToks. Just give us your background.
You know, it's interesting. I don't really remember how it came about. I started my TikTok account back in like 2019 before COVID hit to embarrass my child. She was in high school, and I literally made a video that said, I'm making a video. And she, she was mortified. She came over, she's like, let me help you. I was like, I got this. Like, I don't need your help. And so it was just a thing to embarrass my child. And then one day I made a video. I started out with videos that were, just telling stories, things I see, because honestly, my life ain't boring. So that became, let me give some legal advice, because a client came in and had been searched on the side of the road. And I said, hey, if you come across a situation, let me just tell you. And then I just threw out the advice. And then I think I got 15,000 new followers overnight.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, okay. So they like the legal advice. They like the legal world more than what I have been doing. So I started talking about legal advice. And then this Murdaugh case came out, and it was a big deal when it first came out. And I don't think Alec had even been arrested yet, but maybe he had. I just remember doing a video about the Murdaugh case. I mean, I can tell you where I was when all of because it's ingrained in my mind. I make this video about the case, and I got a call. They were like, you better be careful who you talk about. You don't know the connections that they have. And so it was obviously a lot of people who knew stuff about it. I wasn't the first one on the scene, but I just said that I thought it was interesting. And then we started talking about Alec, and I got a text message from Ronnie Crosby, who testified at the trial. And I referred cases to Ronnie, and we actually had a case pending at the time. And Ronnie was still friends with Alec Murdaugh. So Ronnie said, this is my friend, and it hurts my feelings that you would say these things about him. So I go back onto TikTok and I said, listen, I got a text message from a friend. These videos are hurtful to him, so I'm taking them down. It's never my intention to hurt anybody. And everybody was like, oh my God, they got to you. They have gotten to you for sure. And it wasn't that. It was just that my intention on this account, this platform, whatever, has never been to hurt somebody's feelings, especially not a friend of mine. So I took it down. And then it came out, the financial crimes came out. And I figured at that point that Ronnie might have a change of heart about me talking about Alec Murdaugh. So I went right back into it. But I had followed it the whole time. And so I just started following the case. There was a lot to follow. There were a lot of videos to make because it just kept coming out, and people were very curious about it. So the more they asked, the more I find the answer. And thankfully did it without ever listening to one of the podcasts. Not yours, but the other ones.
Yeah, that's right. Because we started, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 days after the murders. We never thought it would last this long either.
No.
Two things I want to point out. Ronnie Crosby, former law partner with Alec, and also I forgot to say that Lori is in South Carolina.
So she probably gets a lot of scoop. You probably get a lot of inside scoop because you are in the legal field.
I have heard some scoop, yes. I mean, when we talk about the juror tampering, I heard during the trial, I had the whispers, I think Dick even said that. There were whispers of this during the trial. I heard those whispers. I heard something happen when they took the visit to Moselle. So, yeah, I've heard a lot of different things. I get a lot of inside scoop. Don't ever reveal my sources on it, but I do hear a lot of inside scoop.
And some of it is a lot of gossip, right? I mean, we hear that some of the stuff that's like, okay, let's see if that pans out. It never does, or it's so ridiculous. Like, they weren't actually murdered. They're living in an island somewhere, all that nonsense.
I've not heard that one, but
No?
I would, no, I have not.
Yeah.
But, usually what I have heard, I will say, because it comes generally from the legal community, has panned out.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
because you're right
way.
there in Columbia with all the
Yeah.
prosecution and the state and Joe McCall and people like that. So
Yeah, what's your
Right.
biggest thing that you heard that did not pan out?
Oh, gosh. The paint chip, probably.
Okay.
They said that there was a paint chip and that was the new lead that SLED had that, with regard to the Stephen Smith case.
Yep.
Yeah. So they said there was a paint chip, a blue paint chip. That was the only evidence that was found in the Stephen Smith case. And that there was a blue Bronco or I don't know, something on the property. And I haven't heard anything more about that.
Going into the trial, did you think one thing, and did your opinion change as the trial went on, back and forth, and then you have a different opinion today, or was it always the same?
It's funny because, in this, for the sake of justice, and my followers were not always very happy with it, but they would ask me what my feelings were on the guilt or the innocence, and I would never give it. I said, that's not how you get a fair trial. I'm not Nancy Grace. So I'm not going to tell you whether I think that he did it or not. You sit there and listen to the evidence and make your own decisions.
That's what we did, yeah.
So in my opinion, when he was going through this, I still have a very difficult time believing that he would gun down his own child and his own wife. I thought there were some very troubling aspects of it, but I still have that same belief, and it did not change. I don't think the state proved their case in the way that they wanted to prove it. I think he's guilty of something, and I think, if he's there and present at the time, he's probably guilty of the murder for hand of one, hand of all. But I also I still don't buy that he pulled the trigger.
Did you know Alec Murdaugh before all of this?
I knew of him. I did not know him personally. He actually was in law school 2 years ahead of me, I think, or a year ahead of me.
Oh, of course, you're another USC law school person. Is anybody that's involved in this thing not a Gamecock?
Well, that at the time, us older folk, there was no other law school in the state of South Carolina. And we were told, if you want to practice law in the state of South Carolina, you must go to law school at the University of South Carolina.
Yeah.
So
that's why everybody was there.
That's why everybody was there. Yeah, I mean, I told you. I think I sent it to Vinny. We put it up on Court TV one night. Somebody sent it to me. I didn't keep my little Facebook page. It was, the Book of Faces. It's funny. It was a Book of Faces from our law school class. And Alec Murdaugh's picture is in there. And right beside his name, it says Big Daddy Murdaugh. That's how he listed his name.
Wait. He chose
to be Big Daddy.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good
Good
Lord.
grief.
I sent it. I got to. This is when we first filmed in Walterboro, and it was at the restaurant. I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but it was at that restaurant. And I walked in and I said, "Look, Vinny, I brought you a present." And I showed it to him, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, send that over to the producers. We're putting that up."
Yes.
And so he put it up on the screen that night. It was really funny because
that's when we were doing the live shows, right?
Yep. Exactly. And Creighton Waters, Creighton and I graduated law school together. He was in my class.
Jeez.
So, yep. I think that I've aged much better than Creighton.
You look fantastic.
You
need
look
to go.
great.
People need to go look at your.
I'm not handling cases like Murdaugh that'll put 10 years on you.
Yeah, that's
for sure.
true. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about the possibility that Clerk of Court Becky Hill may have said some things that swayed the jury? And not only what do you think about it, but is that enough to get a new trial?
Well, I think the state was very smart in their request for a more specific time frame from the defense. And the reason I say that is because, and I said this from the very beginning, but nobody was really talking about it, so I kind of shut up. But, when you have newly found evidence, it has to be newly found, like as in you just found it and it was after the verdict, but it also could not have been discovered during the trial. But this Facebook message that Becky brought in, or lack of Facebook message that Becky brought in, but the apology that was brought in, all of those had dates on them. So why none of this defense team seemed to hone in or at least check the dates on that is baffling to me. But it's evidence of tampering of something for sure, because I think she made it up. But it could have been discovered during the trial because they didn't look at the dates. All you had to do was look at the dates and realize that there was something off about that.
You mean the defense? You're talking about
Yeah.
Judge Newman dismisses Egg Lady. The defense can request to see why. Like they can request the Facebook message. They can request.
Oh,
all
they
that
had
stuff.
an in-camera hearing. They had a whole hearing. The defense had a copy of that.
That's right, but
Facebook.
it wasn't open,
Yeah.
right? It was behind closed
It
doors.
was in camera. Yes,
Yeah.
closed doors.
So it could be a
So-
sticking point, the fact that they knew this during the trial.
You're going to need more than just the Facebook post, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
I think that might be problemsome. Is that the word? Problemsome?
Problematic.
There
It's a
you go.
problem. Yeah.
It's a problem for Becky because it does appear that she lied to the court. Now, again, she deserves a hearing like everybody else, but it does appear that there was never a Facebook post, and she certainly, if there was, couldn't have seen it when she said she saw it. So that definitely is a problem for her. But that alone, I don't think is going to get him a new trial because that could have been discovered during the trial. So you're
Gotcha.
really relying on the affidavits of the other jurors. Now you've got Eric Bland, who represents 4 of them. Of course, those 4 are going to say that there was no tampering. They didn't feel biased.
I'm with you on this. And I think Cena and I've talked about this. Eric Bland, I get along with Eric, but he's obviously very, very invested in Alec Murdaugh's guilt. He's constantly out there talking about it. So
Yes.
the fact that he's representing jurors who are supposed to be talking to the court about whether they were swayed or not seems a bit of a conflict of interest.
I also find that very problematic.
Because
I
he's
think
so
Joe-
invested.
He is invested, absolutely. I mean, he went on an offer to represent him for free so that he could get them in. I mean, that is problematic for me because you go looking for it. Joe was there every day during the trial, and Joe
McCullough. Yeah.
Yes, Joe sat there behind the state, directly, kind of catty-cornered it with that good camera view of his beautiful silver locks.
Yeah.
But he sat there every day. He listened to the trial, but his opinion was never swayed. I don't think he was biased in any way, shape, or form. He's a defense attorney, so when he went on to the media, he was definitely given a defense attorney's point of view. But I don't ever think that I think he, like me, said, I'm not Nancy Grace. I'm not going to tell you what I think. I think I'm just here to interpret what happened today, and here's what the law is on that, and make sure that you look at both sides. So I don't have a problem with Joe representing these people, Joe McCullough representing the 2 jurors, and potentially a third. But Eric representing 4 jurors is problematic for me because we have the whole cup of justice that, if we were really out for justice, then we have these jurors represented by an independent attorney, not even myself, somebody who has nothing to do with this case. If they need representation, which they don't need representation, but if they feel like they do, get somebody who has nothing to do with the case.
I've
And
seen
then-
on social media that people have said, do we only have 4 attorneys in the state of South Carolina?
That's right.
Because I think someone went to
Yeah.
Bamberg first, right? And then he sent him to Bland, I guess. But what's interesting,
Yeah.
too, is Joe just told me last night that his clients have not been spoken to by any investigators. Do you think that's weird?
Well, I think they're only going to speak to the ones that Eric Bland represents. I mean, these investigators are out to prove their case. I think they take it upon themselves to defend the process, and they're, trying to defend Becky and defend that, they don't want to find anything in their investigation against them because that means that Alec Murdaugh gets a new trial.
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting that they haven't, talked to them. They would have to go through Joe to do that. He's not hard to find. So, I don't know why they haven't talked to them. I think that they need to talk to every single one of them, but also I think we would all like to hear from all of them.
Well, and to be
So-
fair, we should point out that Joe does have a personal relationship with Dick Harpootlian. We
Yeah.
should point that out.
Yeah,
We should point that out, but I don't know that Joe was, maybe he was advising him during the trial, but he certainly wasn't, sitting up behind him, acting as an advisor or part of the
And
case.
I'm not
He wasn't
suggesting that
retained
at all.
Not suggesting
that.
I'm not suggesting. I just felt like we should point
Yeah.
that out.
But here's also
You
the thing.
should.
Everybody in Columbia,
All these
in
lawyers
Columbia-
know each other. They all know each other.
And Harpootlian's been
But
around for
it's not,
1,000
there are
years.
so many more. There are a whole lot more attorneys, but these are just the ones that when you get involved in this case, there's so much attention around the Murdaugh case that once you put your name out there, especially representing victims like Gloria Satterfield. I mean, people think that Eric Bland does criminal defense, and he has maybe had a couple of cases, but he's not a criminal defense lawyer. He's a legal malpractice lawyer. The funniest thing ever, and I posted it on Twitter this past weekend. I don't know if you saw it, Seton, but there's a picture of Greg Leon, who was convicted of murder, and Dick Harpootlian on one side of him and Eric Bland on the other side of him. It's the greatest picture of all time.
I did see that. Yeah.
Eric represented him alongside of Dick, and then they all got conflicted out because of some, questionable tactics on behalf of the defendant, and then Jack Swerling ended up representing him.
Oh, so Bland and Harpootlian were working on together.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he went to Eric Bland, or he went to, I think, Eric Bland first, and then Eric brought Dick in.
And when was this, recently or a long time ago, or what?
No, this is recently. Where have you been, living under a rock?
No, but the actual case
the trial was recent. The trial was recent. Yeah. But the case was in 2016. That's how long they postponed it and put it off.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the case. I wasn't sure when the case was. I know that the trial was recent.
The murder was in 2016. And sadly, within 2 weeks of going to prison, Greg Leon committed suicide.
Yeah, I did see Eric, mourning the
Speaking
loss.
And he spoke on behalf of Greg Leon at his sentencing. He was there, speaking on behalf of a defendant. A man died in that case. A man that Greg Leon walked around the front, caught his wife cheating with, walked around the front of the car at a parking ride where his wife was having relations in the backseat of a truck, opened the door and opened fire. And that apparently is okay. But Alec Murdaugh, who is accused of such, is not okay. So there's a double standard. It's who you represent. This Justice Cup is, it literally has a hole in the bottom of it.
Wow. Okay, so I want to do this too. We talk about let's. I know you watched the Netflix thing, and you've been you mentioned recently on Court TV and before that too, but about a drug cartel possible connection, and it's kind of mentioned in episode 3 of season 2 of the Netflix special. Is this something you considered for a long time? Is it something that you have some other knowledge of other than what's public? What's your thoughts on this?
No, and that's the problem. Nobody has any knowledge of it. It's all, I have thought this since, I've said it all along. Well, I didn't give my opinion during the case, but I have said that if this was a murder, that I believe that the cartel was involved. And the reason for that is because having done drug cases for 20 years, and especially doing federal cases, which this amount of drugs, this amount of dope would amount to a federal case. So when you have this amount of dope, it is not for personal use. Somebody's selling it, and somebody is clearly not doing a good job of selling it, or they wouldn't be stealing money from their firm. So I have always said that this is a cartel. People say that the only defense that they have to that is, well, a cartel member wouldn't use their family's gun. The cartel is much neater than that. They come in, they wipe out, and then they get out. Okay, I get that. But you're on, Walterboro and the same area sits right off the 95 drug corridor. Yeah. There are task force that run along 95 because that is a major drug corridor. So we have that, but we also have cartel. The cartel can't put the cartel people in every little podunk town around, off of 95. So they have the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are the gang that lives and works inside of Walterboro. And those Cowboys would be the ones that would pull off this killing for the cartel. It's not like you're going to get the professional hitman to come in and take out his family. You're going to get somebody from the Cowboys. So yeah, if the cartel put out a hit, from Juan Pablo, whatever, from Mexico or Colombia, then yeah, you might get a professional hit. But this is an order, in my opinion, that likely came down from very high, that was carried out by someone local who knew the family, who knew the area, and had dealt with Alec in the past.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit, just to I don't know if devil's advocate's the right word, but they're going to knock off Alec's wife and kid. Mm-hmm. They're doing it, to send a message that you stiffed us on however much money, and that's what we do?
I think they were out there and saying, where's the money? We've asked you before, where's the money? Where's the money? Have the gun pointed at Paul. Where's the money? Where's the money?
Okay.
And Alec can't say, won't say, can't say, probably doesn't have it. I don't know where it went, but maybe he did have it. Maybe after they killed both of his family members right in front of him, maybe he gave him the location of the money, and maybe it went away.
Well, that is true that there's been questions about. It doesn't seem like nearly enough money has been recovered from what was stolen. And
in
he
the
wasn't
Fed
living
court
like
today. They said $10 million instead of nine.
So $10 million.
Yeah, $10 million.
You are living
Yeah.
pretty damn good in Hampton County.
Yes, you are, especially without having anything in his. I mean, he had money in his retirement account, but the salary that he was making off of that law firm alone,
Right.
you would be living well off that salary, not having to steal money to put up with that lifestyle. So I don't know. I think that's going to be one of the more interesting parts about the polygraph portion of his federal plea, whether they will make him take the polygraph, or whether he's come clean to them and will be put into protective custody. You never know.
You never know. And one thing on the Netflix special in episode 3, when they kind of bring it up with Cousin Eddie and that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was somebody on the episode said that the defense tried to bring that up, but I don't remember the defense ever running with a drug cartel killed him thing during the trial. Do you guys?
No,
I don't remember them.
Vaguely, I think there was an implication of it when they said something about the two different types of ammo and the two different shooters. When they start talking about that there was more than one shooter there, I think that was their attempt to bring it up.
Yeah.
It just was
But it wasn't straight up.
very poor job.
They weren't straight up bringing anything up because
I don't think he would let them. I mean, I really do. Elliot ran that defense. Absolutely ran that defense from behind the scenes. Now, I don't know that they did a great job carrying out Elliot's wishes. If somebody's feeding you what to do, you're still going to do it to the best of your ability. And you and I both talked about that the lawyering in this case was very lackluster until the very end. And even Jim Griffin's closing was not great. So what was really great was the John Metters closing. So, and that's what I think took it home. I would like to think for everybody, but yeah, I think it was there. I just think it wasn't mentioned. I do think that this polygraph requirement, and I talked about this morning, the polygraph provision in a plea agreement is not unheard of. So, I mean, I looked up some of my plea agreements to see if they had polygraph provisions in it because I've seen it before. And I could only find one plea agreement because I closed my files out, but I could only find one. It didn't have it in there, but it is a standard provision that is put into these polygraphs, especially when you have somebody like Elliot Murdaugh. But I mean, whether they actually make him do it is they have to, they're going to but they're going to look for something that they don't believe he's telling everything he knows on. Because remember, a polygraph is like 5 questions. They're not sit down and polygraph somebody for 3 hours. It's like 5 questions, and then you're being deceptive on this particular issue.
I want to point out real quick that what she's referring to is an Alex federal plea agreement when he pled guilty to the money stuff. Part of that was that he agreed to take a polygraph. Now, can they ask him only about the money crimes? They can ask him anything they want?
No. When you sign a proffer with the federal government, what it does 2 things. It protects you from prosecution from anything that they don't know about, and it also gives you credit for cooperating. But the biggest part of that is that it protects you from anything that you have not been prosecuted for. So he has to tell them everything. He's got to, I mean, part of it is you've got to spill it all. So he might tell them about stuff they don't know about, but they can't prosecute him for it. But if he lies to them in any way, shape, or form, if they catch him lying on a polygraph, then that whole agreement's null and void. They'll come after him for everything that he's told him.
Which is weird because the polygraph is not admissible in court, yet the court is saying you need to take a lie detector.
Yeah, it's the government saying that it's the government's provision. The court will not sanction it and will not allow it in, but it's still one of the tools that they use to tell if you're telling the truth. Sure.
I want to get back to the Netflix special. Did anyone notice that Blanca seemed very uncomfortable? She refused to answer. Blanca, who is the housekeeper for the Murdaugh family, she refused to answer the question if she thought there was any sort of help.
Yeah.
The night of the murders. And she was visibly uncomfortable and refused to answer the questions. And she also had knowledge about Alec Murdaugh's drug use.
Mm-hmm.
She said they didn't talk about it, but she saw bags of pills and
They would fall out of his pocket or something
pockets
at
and
times.
stuff. Yes.
I don't
So
think she did him many favors in that Netflix special. Did you?
Well, I think that my impression was, though, that I took away that she doesn't think that he did it at least alone.
that made me question this cartel theory. Her appearance in this Netflix special made me think about the drug connection and the cartel connection more than anything else.
Interesting. That might have been part that I was asleep through because I don't remember that particular part. But I felt like she was very harsh on him and that family. She said things that would have hurt him in trial had she said them in that special that she did not say in trial. Her story became a little bit more embellished in that documentary, in my opinion.
Yeah, a few things. I mean, during the documentary, she said things like the night of the murders, that she had prepared this meal for the family, and typically Maggie would have called and, told her that.
She talked about him being jittery.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yep.
None of that was brought up during the trial, so it felt a little bit like she was embellishing a little bit for the Netflix cameras.
She seemed genuine, though, to me. She did. I mean, she genuinely seemed fearful when she was giving that question about whether someone else was there the night of the murders.
Whereas, as you know, Seton,
I have to go back and look that one.
Yeah, but Seton and both of us and Lori, sometimes you sit in front of those cameras. She could have been there for 3 hours and edited it down to this.
Why you got to discredit the discrediting?
Discrediting.
The best part of this interview or this whole Netflix special, the only thing I think that she might have done well, and I didn't even see it, and you over there discrediting it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
Well, not you, Seton, Matt.
Yeah, that's me. That's
me.
Okay,
sorry, I was confused.
I'm a mess. I ruin all the fun. Let's see. Was there anything else that we wanted to mention about? Let me see.
I wanted to ask you about Corey Fleming's sentence. To me, I had done a lot of looking, and I could not find any other attorney in our state with a similar offense who had received more time.
No, you won't find that. And after, I know it seems crazy with my direct and kind of, I don't want to say obnoxious. I don't think I'm obnoxious, but I'm pointed. I'm pointed. I'm a very direct personality, but I also have a very empathetic personality. So when I came home that night after watching it at my office, and I go live on TikTok, and we started talking about it, and it just was at the pit of my stomach. I felt horrible for him. I felt horrible for his attorney. And then my daughter popped in, who's moved away from college, and that's that was the final straw. I just started start crying right there on TikTok for everybody to see. And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, my daughter just ruined everything. I was okay. I could have held it in, but she popping up across the country just did me in." But I literally could feel the pain and the gut wrenching for his attorney, for him. This is a man that stood there broken already. You could clearly tell he was already broken. You could clearly tell he was remorseful. When you plead guilty, are supposed to get something in return for pleading guilty. That's the way the system works, because you have saved the taxpayers' money and the government having to try the case against you. So we always know, look, you don't want the trial sentence, you want the plea sentence. And Judge Newman, in my opinion, did not give a plea sentence. And that was what I thought until yesterday, whenever we got to reevaluate what Judge Newman said when the actual written order came out. So I thought 20 years, good God, I've never seen anything like it. At 20 years, that's absolutely just disastrous for his life, for his family, for his attorney. Sent her a message and said, I know that you must be reeling. I mean, it was really hard. So yeah, I looked up two people. So one of the things, and I've said this, I think I told you this, Matt, maybe off camera somewhere before, but Sam Cruz is an attorney, or was an attorney here in Columbia, South Carolina. And the reason that I know that is because his office was right next door to where mine was. And all of a sudden, one day, he is no longer there. And it turned out that Sam Cruz had stolen upwards of $1 million from his clients and was disbarred. And I assume arrested, because isn't that what happens? You get arrested too for stealing your client's money.
Sure.
So I thought that, but as I'm writing, I downloaded the original part of the Netflix series and watched that as I was driving. Don't tell anybody. On the way home from Spartanburg Parents Weekend last year. And lo and behold, in the middle of this Netflix special is Sam Cruz. And I'm like, I paused it and I looked closer to make sure. Yes, he's in there. So he is, if you look at, especially in episode 3 of the first season, he is now teaching at the school where Mallory and Buster and Stephen Smith went to school. So he's on there as, hey, yeah, I knew both Stephen and Mallory. And I'm like, and it just says teacher, such and such high school, whatever high school it was.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like calling my friend going, hey, have you seen the Netflix special? Is that the same Cruz? I mean, it looks like the same Sam Cruz. That same Sam Cruz that stole over $1 million from his client. And so I looked back. I found the order for when he was disbarred. It was 2010 he was disbarred. So you got to assume that he was either charged and convicted of something, like say in 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so in what he knew, I don't know the year Stephen Smith died. What was that? 2018, 19? What was it?
I think that was 2015.
2015, yeah.
Okay, so in 2015, this Sam Cruz was teaching at the school, and this happened in 2010. So at some point in there, if he faced criminal charges, he was able to get them resolved enough to go teach at the high school. And hey, Netflix, you might want to vet your people a little bit better, because this is about, this is absolutely about someone who stole money from their clients, and you have somebody who stole money from your clients in your chair right there. It was hilarious to me, but I could never find a sentence. You can't even go back and find where he was convicted of anything, because I did go look for that. So I think he's had it expunged off his record now. So
I made restitution maybe or something like that.
But if he was arrested, he made restitution, and it was to something that was not a felony. He was able to get it expunged off his record. But the other one that you have here that was local was Breitbart, who is out of Lexington County. He got 5 years, and he stole $1.2 million.
And Fleming was not even a million, was he?
No.
Six figures.
No, I don't think so.
And the thing about it, I think is sad. I mean, it was less time than what I think people originally thought, but he's still going to serve at least 8.5 years. He's in his 50s. He's going to probably miss his kids' weddings. He's going to miss.
Yeah. Not to excuse what he did, but it just seems like a harsh sentence.
But you think about it. If Breitbart got 5 years, 5-year sentence, he didn't do 5 years. So what I think happened in this case, first of all, I know that Judge Newman is very familiar with the Murdaugh case. I know Judge Newman knew what he was doing with the sentence, and knew that he wasn't giving him 20 years like we all thought. Because honestly, I was like, good Lord, Judge Newman, after 20-year sentence seems so crazy. But he knew what he was doing. We didn't know what he was doing. But at the same time, it still seems a little bit unfair in that I think what he did was he held Corey Fleming responsible for the injuries that happened in these accidents instead of the financial part of the accident. So Satterfield's accident was tragic and horrible, and her kids lost their house as a result of it. Okay, you should be responsible for that because you stole money that could have paid for their house, maybe. But Pinckney was just the most awful kind of accident. Mm-hmm. Corey Fleming took money, but Fleming was, unfortunately died before Corey Fleming even touched his money, before they even settled the case. But that is such a sad story. I think that there could have been a little bit of crossover and confusion in the fact that Corey did not cause the injuries to these people. Corey took their money, but Corey did not cause the horrific accident that injured Mr. Pinckney.
And his association with Alec Murdaugh probably didn't help either.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, obviously it didn't help. That's the thing. It was the combination of Murdaugh. But, we're there because of Murdaugh. And then you have Justin Bamberg, who's standing up and talking about how awful this accident is. And then Eric Glenn standing up and talking about how the Satterfield kids lost their mother and all of their money. So, yeah, I think that it was real easy to remember how horrible these accidents were and not necessarily focus completely on the fact that this is a financial crime.
Lori, always cool to talk with you. You can check her out, Lawyer Lori, on TikTok. And she's been a defense attorney for many, many years. Lori Murray, thanks for hanging out. And we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
All
Thanks,
right,
Ethan.
bye.
Thank you, Lori.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Off she goes, and we will get a lot of response to that.
We sure will.
But like we have said many, many times, we will talk to on all sides of the situation. We'll talk to anybody who we think has knowledge and is smart about it.
Yeah, I know Will Folks has said many times he has an open platform, and I think we are like-minded in that way.
And we are off. We are always so, so grateful that you spend time with us. I'm sure you'll want to reach out. You can find us on Impact of Influence on Facebook and Seton Tucker on the socials. I'm going to send them your way.
No. Don't reach out to me.
Matt Harris podcast at gmail.com. I'll send it to her. All right. We'll talk soon, friends.